Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we will discuss the topic variables, and the outline of our topic is introduction, types of variable, dependent variable and independent variable, control variable, syntax, how to write a variable, how to declare a variable or how to assign a variable, declaration of variable, uses of variable, creating variable, importance of variable, and at the end summary. First we will discuss the basic definition of variable, that what are variables. Variables are the name you give to computer memory location which are used to store values in computer program. For example, when we assign a value to a variable, for example, I'm assigning the number 10 to a variable x. So I am assigning the value 10. I am basically storing the value 10 in the variable x. So here we have example. For example, you assume you want to store two values 10 and 20 in your program, and then later and at the later stage you want to use these two values, then you will store these values in variable. Next we have types of variable. There are types of variable: number 1 dependent variable, number 2 independent variable, and number 3 control variable. What is dependent variable? In computing, a dependent variable is any variable whose value, output or functioning depends on two or more independent variables. A dependent variable is used in computer programming to represent a value, process, function or entity within the programming paradigm, context or architecture. Types of dependent variable. We have different types of dependent variable. First we have an experimental variable, next an explained variable, a measure variable, an outcome variable, an output variable, a responding variable, a regression or regression analysis, a response variable. The second one type of variable is an independent variable. Basically, what is independent variable? As name shows, it is independent. In computing, an independent variable is any variable that changes its value under a process, program or event, or any computing specific interaction. It is used in computer program to be assigned to a variable value, entity or process, or to calculate the value of dependent variable. Control variable. Next, the third type of variable is control variable. A control variable in computer programming is a program variable that is used to regulate the flow of control of the program. In definite interaction, control variables are variables which are successively assigned or bound to values from a predetermined sequence of values. What is syntax of variable? Basically, syntax is the way of writing. The word syntax means the grammar of a programming language. We can talk about the syntax of just a small part of a program, such as syntax of a variable declaration, which will tell us how to declare a variable. Declaring of variable. There are several ways to declare variables: data type, variable, and name. In data type, you will declare the data type, in which data type you are storing the values. For example, int, character, string. Variable, then variable name, and at the end semicolon. This declares a variable, declares its data type, and reverse memory for it. It says nothing about what value is putting in memory. Later in these notes, you will learn that in some circumstances, the variable is automatically initialized, and then in other circumstances, the variable is left uninitialized. The next slide is also showing the syntax of variable, that how to declare a variable: data type, variable name equal to initial value, and semicolon. This declares a variable, declares its data type, reverses memory for it, and puts an initial value into that memory. The initial value must be of the correct data type. For example, if you are declaring data type int, then you will initialize the value in integers. If you are declaring data type in character, then you will initialize your values in character, for example a, b, c, x, y, z, etc. Okay. Next we have data type variable name 1, variable name 2. This declares two variables, both of the same data type, reverses the memory for each, and puts nothing in any variable. You can do this with more than two variables if you want. The choice is yours. Data type variable name 1 is equal to variable name 1. Variable name 2 equal to variable name 2. Next we will discuss what are the uses of variable, why we use variables in our programming. Variables are used to store information to be referenced that we refer in that program again and again and manipulated in a computer program. They also provide a way of labeling data with a descriptive name, and our program can be understood more clearly by the reader and ourselves. It is helpful to think of variables as containers that hold information. For example, I'm giving you an example. If you want to store different food items in containers as we store in our refrigerator, same is the case with variables. In programming, you consider that program as a refrigerator, the variables as the container, and the values you assign to variables you think like they are food items. As we store food items in different containers to fix them in refrigerator, similarly we use different variables to assign different values, and then we use these variables in our program. Creating variable. How to create variables? Creating variables is also called declaring variable in C programming. Different programming languages have different ways of creating variables inside a program. For example, C programming has the following simple way of creating variables. Examples of creating variables include #include, studio.h, int main, then int a. In int a, you are just declaring a variable a. Semicolon, int b, declaration of variable b. Now, how to store values in these a and b? C has two ways of storing number values, variables and constant, with many options for each. A variable is a data storage location that has a value that can change during program execution. In contrast, a constant has a fixed value that cannot be changed, as the name shows constant. So constant value can't be changed. Okay. For example, include studio.h, int main, int a, semicolon, int b. Int main, we are declaring main function. Okay. Next we are declaring variable a, variable b, and then in the third line we are assigning a value of data type int, that is 10. Integer type, we are assigning the value in a variable a. We are using assignment operator here, which is equal to, so that value 10 is stored in the variable a. Semicolon must be put at the end. 20 is assigning to variable b. Assess store values in variables. If we do not use the stored values in the variables, then there is no point in creating variables and storing values in them. We know that the above program has two variables, a and b, and this stores the value of 10 and 20 respectively. For example, include studio int main, int a, int b, a equal to 10, b equal to 20, that is we are assigning value of 10 and 20 to variable a and b. Printf value of a equal to value of a. Printf value of b. So this program will simply print the value of a as 10 and the value of b. Experiment type of variables. An experiment usually has three kinds of variables, that is independent, dependent, and controlled. The independent variable is the one that is changed by the scientist. Like declaring of variable. Here is a list of some fundamental data types and their characteristics from C++. Data types. A data type. What is data type? A data type in programming is a classification that specifies which type of value a variable has and what type of mathematical relational or logical operations can be applied to it without causing an error. Next we have integer types. Like we are now explaining different data types. The first one is integer type. Integers are ordinary whole numbers or the numbers with no fractional decimal parts and what we commonly use from day to day. Integers can added, subtracted, multiplied. Care must be taken when they are divided, as the division of two integers is not necessarily another integer. Rules, reals and floating point numbers. Reals or floating point numbers represent numbers that can have fractional or decimal parts. Floating point numbers are represented a bit differently than integers and can be represented in a much larger number of numbers. Okay. Signed and unsigned integers. Integers can be signed or unsigned. The signed information takes up just one bit, but that bit reduces the absolute precision. Signed integers can be represented about one or two of the numbers. Its unsigned quotients can represent both positive and negative values of those numbers. Characteristics and string variables. Characters are, I have told earlier, the characters of A, B and C. Similarly, int are the whole numbers. Up to until now we have discussed types of that are of a single value. Text, which is what you are reading now, is not a single value. It's made up of letters. Each letter is an individual value. A character is a single letter, number, punctuation or other values. Categorical variables. Variables that can be put into categories. For example, the category toothpaste brand might contain the variables. Now, confounding variables. Extra variables that have a hidden effort on your experimental results. Continuous variables. A variable with infinite number of values like time or weight are called continuous variables. What are control variables? A factor in an experiment which must be held constant. For example, in an experiment to determine whether light makes plants grow faster, you would have to control for soil quality and water. Dependent variable. The outcome of an experiment. As you change the independent variable, you watch what happens to that dependent variable. Discrete variable. What is discrete variable? A variable that can only take a certain number of values. For example, number of cars in a parking lot. It's discrete because a car park can only hold so many cars. Independent variable. A variable that is not affected by anything that your researcher does, usually plotted on the x-axis. It is therefore called, as the name shows, independent, that doesn't depend on any other change. So the next one is lurking variables. A hidden variable that affect the relationship between the independent and dependent variables. A measurement variable has a number associated with it. It's an amount of something or a number of something. Next we have nominal variables, another name for categorical variables. Ordinal variables, similar to the categorical variables, but there is a clear order. For example, incomes levels of low, middle and high could be considered ordinal. Next we have qualitative variable, a broad category for any variable that can't be counted, that is, has no numerical value. Nominal and ordinal variables fall under this umbrella term, that is qualitative variable. Next we have quantitative variable, a broad category that includes any variable that can be counted, as name shows quantitative variable, or has a numerical value associated with it. For example, if variables that fall into this category include discrete variables and ratio variables. Random variables are associated with this random process and gives numbers to outcomes of the random events. A ranked variable is an ordinal variable, a variable where every data point can be put in order first, second and third and up to so on. Ratio variable, similar to the interval variables but has a meaningful zero. Importance of variable. Variables plays an important role in computer programming, as they play a very important role. We use frequently variables in our program. It reduces the complexity of our program. It reduces the complexity of our code. We can easily read, we can easily understand our code by reading, by enhancing our program using variables. So we'll discuss variables plays an important role in computer programming because they enable programmers to write flexible programs rather than entering data directly into a program. A programmer can use variables to represent the data. The opposite of a data is a constant. Constant are values that never change. As the name shows, constants are the values that can be never and ever change. Thank you so much. Hope you like this lecture, and I want you guys to write summary in the comments below. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.